The Jim Fallon Show. We've come to take your mind.
Am I still on? Dan Payne is my guest. He's probably looking at the description and going, what? A teacher, a pastor, a comedian? Anyways, Dan Payne is in the house. Buckle up and welcome aboard. And I'm trying to get over to the music before the next song comes up and just barely makes it. Dan Payne, you know what? I'm going to get to know you a little bit better, but let me start out before I ask you how you're doing, how you're feeling. Let me thank you. You've been on my lips lately, a lot lately. I know that sounds freaking ridiculous, but I've been talking about you a lot lately. And unmute your mic if you haven't done that already. I was talking about you on my broadcast the other day because I've been in the basement. I've been sick. I had a 5-day cold, and you know it's a cold. It's no big deal. But then I went right into either dengue fever or the flu, and I can't remember ever having the flu. And you know what? I got some family members that are going through some stuff. I've lost a bunch of buddies. A guy in my complex died. Like, I mean, it's been, you know, we have our days when we're not feeling it. And I was having one of those days, and out of the blue, you text me, and we don't converse all that much. I'm praying for you, something just short and simple. I'm praying for you. I'm like, dude, you don't know. First of all, don't pray for me, I feel like saying. And I'm like, dude, yeah, thank you. I need some prayers right now, man. I am hurting, so thank you for that. I don't know. The universe, God, the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if we're going to go all religion today, but I know you're a faithful man. So I thought that was really good timing on your part. And then we had a decent conversation after that. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your prayers and for thinking about me. And it worked. It helped out. Even talking to you was great. So thank you. How are you, my brother?
Well, I'm cold, which means I'm old. So,
well, you're in Georgia, right?
Oh yeah. It's 30 degrees, so it's not horrible. But you know, when you're getting up into the almost 60-year-old mark coming up this few months, so
how many degrees is it?
It's like 34 degrees right now.
Oh, so you're close to freezing then.
Yeah, it's cold enough, but you know, I love the cold. My body doesn't.
We don't normally think of Georgia as a cold state, though. It's a southern state, no?
Yeah, well, you wouldn't, but it is.
Wow.
That's the thing. It's like, you know, in Georgia, if you don't like the weather, just wait 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's what they say about the DR, too. Just wait 20 minutes and it'll change.
Yeah, here it can get really cold. It can get really hot. That's the thing about it. It's like you can't make up its mind. It's like Georgia's like bipolar when it comes to the weather.
Okay.
So.
How you been feeling?
Well,
I know you had some challenges there over the last few months, so I'm glad to see you up and at 'em, and you got the strength and conviction to do a podcast with me for an hour. So you must be feeling pretty decent compared to maybe how you've been feeling lately. But
I get used to hurting and still doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole thing. Is I've had 7 spine surgeries, so you know I've got a lot of joints that are fused: front, the back of my neck, lower back, between my hip and my spine, all fused. and then had 3 more just because they had to remove bone spurs, plus knee replacement. I've had 25 surgeries or more total. So that's why I say when it's cold, I hurt. It's like I'm a freaking weatherman. I don't even have to look at the weather channel. I can just go, okay, it's going to rain. Okay, it's going to snow.
You must be a
Left
good,
knee.
it must be a great time at the airport going through the customs.
I do. I walk through before I go through. I'm looking at them. I'm like, okay, it's going to go off, and you're going to see it's going to be middle back, lower back, and neck. I walk in my knee, and I walk through. They look at me like, said spine surgeries. So they have to pat me down and stuff like that. And I'm enjoying that. Can I do this again? I always like messing with them. But like over in England is where you have the most fun talking to them because
Why?
you can,
Well, because they don't have guns.
Oh, no, they do. But it's like they just laugh because it's like, my accent for one. But 2, because I walk in, I said, you're going to see it here. And they look at me like, what? And I walk through. I'm like, see? It's fun. England, they're actually quite fun. Now in the Netherlands, they scare you because they're all like 6'5", blonde hair, and you expect them to be part of the Hitler Youth, but they're not because it's the Netherlands, and they're not supposed to be like that anymore. But please don't put that out there because
we're live. I love it. Just say it all, brother, and you can't take any of it back. Some of my guests, for one reason or another, will call and go, "Yeah, bro, can you take that down?" I'm like, no, I can't. Can you cut this part out? No, I don't cut. I don't edit. I don't take down. And you should have thought of that before you came on with me and said something stupid live on 12 platforms and 15 accounts or whatever I'm on. I mean,
that's all right. No, I'm good. No, it is what it is, man. But I tell you what, they pulled me out of line. We're in line there, and they pulled me out of line and said, we need to check you more. So they take everything out of my suitcase and look, and they put it back in. I'm looking at them like, I'm a priest, okay? You saw the big cross on your thing. It's not a gun. It's a freaking crucifix. Now, I can beat you to death with it because it's like this big, but, hey, but... Yeah, it's amazing how a crucifix looks like a Star Wars weapon if it's big enough. It's like, right? You can either beat the devils to death or you can beat somebody to death and just say, hey, it's the blood of Christ.
So learn me up about Dan Payne. I know you a little bit about you. We share a couple men's groups, and we've had some great times in those. Yeah. I got to make a better effort getting back. I had a schedule change in my life. I actually took a job down here that I'm not really willing to talk about right now, but like a real job for 6 hours every day, like getting up at 6 o'clock to be somewhere for 7:38 and work until noon. And it's unbelievable. But so I had to shift everything, like my Thursday morning's men's group. I had to say goodbye to them, and I was I'm a founding member. The thing's 15 years old at a central community church, and they do like a hybrid format. There's only a few of us that come in by Zoom, but I appreciate the accommodation. So I say goodbye to them, and there's the Monday morning one I'm going to miss too. There's every 2 weeks there that what's his name got me into.
Dan or Snell?
Yeah, Snell. I told him I got an opening for him in 3 weeks. 2 weeks, 3 weeks from tonight if he wants to come in. And then I'd like to get Butler on. I've already had Turner on. And if I could get Nicky Blue on again. Nicky Blue, I had on my radio show when he wrote his first book. We met up in Landmark, and when I was at 610 CKTB, I had him come down and he talked about what was it called, the finish line or finishing to win or something like that. Yeah, Nicky's an interesting guy. But so I know a little bit about you. It's a long way of going around the block with the conversation. But take as much time as you want. I'll put you on full screen so people aren't looking at me. And start at the beginning, man. Start at the beginning. Tell me stuff that I don't know about you and how you can slowly bring us up to today's date type of thing, and just hit on some significant pieces of your life. I know you're a guy that's really been open about your life, your struggles, and I even admitted to you, like the first time we met on Zoom, I'm like, whoa, dude, too much information, stop it. Like you were just an open book immediately. And I think that makes guys like us, some guys, I won't put us in the same category because I don't know if you're like that, but sometimes it makes us feel uncomfortable. Like, dude, I don't even know you. What are you telling me this deeply personal stuff for? Well, it's men's group, you jackass. So, anyways, take as long as you want to start off where you want and tell us about who you are, where you came from, and how you got to this point.
Well, interesting story, lots of caveats. Grew up in Georgia, born in Atlanta, which basically means that I was born, when I was born in 64. So I was still in Atlanta while it was definitely still segregated to a point, still very much more like the old South. Grew up with parents who were wonderful, but, we're still mentally old South. I won't go much more into that, but you can probably figure what I mean by that. Interesting, I grew up in the subdivision and, halfway between the country and the city, which means that country folks think that we are city slickers and city slickers think that we're country. And, now granted, you could throw me in the woods and I could survive pretty much anything. I know how to hunt, how to fish. So I have that redneck in me, but I also know which spoon to use for coffee and which fork to use for salad. Or, I know how to lay that out. So I kind of like have both sides. So I kind of get along anywhere. Went to a high school at the time. There was a cow pasture next to it. Now it looks like a university. It's one of the best schools in the area there in Gwinnett County, Georgia. Graduated from high school. I was an only child. Went to Mercer University. That's where I got my baccalaureate degree. That was in human resources, which was, you'd think that was about human resources as far as insurance and stuff, but it wasn't. It was social work. So I went into social work for a while because I wanted to make the big bucks. And so I decided I wanted to do better than that. Instead of being social work, I went into teaching because I really wanted to make the big bucks. And after that, I decided, I'm supposed to be in ministry. So I was called to ministry. So I decided to go for the real big bucks, which was to go into ministry. In other words, I've been broke most of my life.
All right, I got you.
So in the middle of that, I did go get a Master's of Divinity at New Orleans Baptist Seminary. If you notice the trend about Baptist, that's pretty much what I was at that time. And after that, I was teaching at a independent Baptist college, and they encouraged me to get a doctorate, which I did. So now I'm Reverend Dr. Dan, which you just call me Dan. And just actually a couple months ago, I finished my dissertation. It was accepted, so I just earned my second doctorate through Portland Seminary, which is a Quaker school. So a little different between that and the Baptist. Whole lot of difference. But I really enjoyed that. That degree was in semiotics and future studies, which basically you could say is the church in the age of Google, or now what I would call it's the church in the age of AI. And part of the focus was to look at demographics and trends and help the church to be able to embrace those in order to, get more people to to come to the gospel. But that's pretty much it. I'm married 29 years. Wife hasn't killed me yet, which is a very good thing. I know a couple months ago, she said, Dan, I want a gun. And I'm like, oh, crap. And luckily, she doesn't know how to shoot one. So I'm very happy with that. But I'm like, honey, you could just poison me. It'd be a lot less painful. But no, she wants that because she actually is in a wheelchair now, and she does have a prosthetic leg and everything now. She lost it 3 years ago 10 days after having triple bypass. So she's pretty tough. But, because her mobility is definitely challenged now while she's driving or whatever she's doing, she wants to be a little bit safe. So here's that American gun culture again. Let's get a gun. But, trust me, they don't call it Hot Atlanta for nothing. Okay.
I say arm everyone.
Yeah. And I'm big into using different weapons and stuff. And, I'm very much about weapons safety, of course. I tell my wife, just because you have a gun means nothing. I said, unless you are able to shoot the weapon while I'm standing next to you, yelling and screaming at you and slapping things, and making noise, you're not going to do it because, it's got to be more than just being able to shoot a target. That's the thing.
Well, you got to.
I'm about, if you can't shoot a weapon well and you don't know how to handle it, you should not have a gun,
No,
period.
because then
And
then it would get turned on you, and it's a good way to escalate the situation rather than de-escalate. You know, you just pull out your gun if you're feeling threatened, and I mean, we see so much of this. Well, I shouldn't say so much of it because it happens far too often, but it's pretty rare, these school shootings and stuff like that. And you just like, a good guy with a gun always takes the bad guy out if the bad guy doesn't take himself out. And I know you guys had another one, I think, in Iowa today. Isn't it strange how every time Trump gets some good news, a school shooting happens close by?
yeah, it's and it unfortunately, I see that it's not about the ability to have weapons, even though having the access to it absolutely helps. Like if you have two evil people and you give them, here's your gun or here's your knife, they're going to grab the gun just because it's easier to kill. They both want to kill. That's not, and again, there's some mental illness there. There's never a time where there's not mental illness going on. I'm bipolar. I understand mental illness. When I tell people, especially in my family, hey, I just got diagnosed with bipolar, they're like, no, there's no way. Oh no, there's no way you could be bipolar. I'm like, what? I'm not going to be molesting kids. Now I am a priest, but that's a different story entirely. But no, I'm just kidding. FBI, I'm kidding. Okay. But no, I mean, they look at you like, because you're mentally ill. It's like, I had one guy, who I shot on a shooting team with. He looked at me and goes, now that you're bipolar, do we have any problems? I'm like, I was bipolar before that. I shot next to you for years. No, there's no problem. If there is, I'm going to take myself off the line. Because people don't understand mental illness.
No, and there's so much stigma with these labels, you know what I mean? And, there's so much self-diagnosis out there, too. I'm OCD, I'm this, I'm that. And the first thing they teach you if you go through for psychology or something like that is you're going to see mental illness. You're going to see all these illnesses in yourself. Why? Because you have a little bit of all of them. It doesn't mean you're sick. It doesn't mean you need medication. But a lot of the kids come out of it going, oh, I'm OCD and I'm borderline and I'm this and I'm that. And no, stop it. Just work through your issues and stay off the drugs. I mean, drugs are definitely, handy when you got a chemical imbalance. But there's so many, it's like Russian roulette with the drugs, a certain one of them, especially the uptake inhibitors, you know what I mean? We throw them around a lot, and there's so many of them, and then they make people suicidal and stuff when they stop them and stuff like that. So
I've been doing a new drug lately, which is actually, it's prescription, okay? And I'm not in Colorado, so it's not the same kind of prescription as some people have, but it's ketamine. And I've been doing ketamine therapy for about a month and a half now because my depression medication just has not been working. I've been having seizures, I went in the hospital. That's why my hair's short, because I was in the hospital for a week. They had to check. They test me for epilepsy because I was having seizures all the time. And they came back and said, "Oh, you're not epileptic." I'm like, "Great." And I said, "Well, I'm still having seizures." Like, "Well, we figured out what's the problem." And I'm like, "No, you figured out what the problem isn't."
Yeah.
But that's the problem with doctors is they diagnose you based on their specialty. And if they can't diagnose you, they're just like, "Okay, you're good." Yeah. And I'm like, "No, I'm not good." I asked them, I said, "What can I do?" They said, "Oh, you can go have cognitive behavior therapy. That'll help you." And I'm like, "I've been having that since 2009. It's helped, but no, I'm still having seizures." So I started, I've had 6 treatments so far with ketamine. And I will be honest with you, I've never been so high in my life. No. Okay. I mean, it's beyond stoned. It's like the 70s have come back to visit me. And this time I don't remember the 70s because ketamine it will mess you up bad as far as how high you are. But every time has been such a therapeutic, because it's a nurse that's with me and talks to me the whole, and monitors me to make sure I'm okay and stuff. They do blood pressure. So it's not just like you're, hiding in a corner. It's they have a nurse and a doctor who prescribes it. So it's, it's medically monitored.
Can you talk about the dosage?
I started out with 300 milligrams. Now I'm at 600.
Holy shit! How long does that last?
Let's see. I did a therapy Tuesday morning about 11:30, and I came off the main high. And when I say main high, it was about 1. So I mean, for about an hour, you're just completely I mean, you're Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds
Oh
kind of high.
shit!
I mean, you're
Wow.
just. But the weirdest thing was, you go into it with intent. That's one of the very most important things.
Right.
You go because it's there to help with dealing with trauma.
Okay.
And thing is, I used to have seizures about every couple of minutes. Now I have it maybe once an hour since then. I wasn't able to drive at all because I kept having double vision and stuff while I was driving. Now I'm able to drive short distances without it. And I actually drove for about an hour with my wife. As long as she was talking to me, I could drive. It's just when it's quiet, my vision just kind of gets crazy. And it's all goes back to what several of the doctors believe is called, uh, gosh, went blank here. Um, Functional neurological disorder, which is basically that the brain takes trauma, it takes stress, and it makes it become physical.
Hmm.
And it's almost like your subconscious is sitting there going, okay, we're going to do whatever we can to keep Dan safe. The way we keep him safe is to keep him home. Because if he goes out, he could get hurt. If he goes out and works in a church, he could get hurt. So your body actually does whatever it can to
Hmm.
keep you. And I've noticed it, it's usually called conversion disorder.
Hmm.
And it's interesting because I can be stressed out about something. All of a sudden, my left arm specifically just starts jumping, which is
Hmm.
okay as long as it's there. But I like to sleep with my chest. I punch myself in the face when it's jumped. I've had it down. I've had my hand at my knee and punch myself in the, well, you know where. I mean, rack yourself for Pete's sakes. But I've been doing this therapy, and because I was just so tired of taking all these other drugs that I still felt miserable. I haven't had a sense of well-being in 30 years.
Hmm.
And the last 6 weeks, I have.
Wow.
I have a sense of well-being that I've not, because what ketamine does, it helps your medication that you are taking to work better some of the time, at least for me. And like, here's one thing I haven't shared yet. I'm 59. 6 years ago, when I was 53, my aunt accidentally told me that I was adopted as an infant. And I didn't know I was adopted. I always had this feeling that something was missing. People were missing, and I kept always would ask when I was a child, "Where's my brother? And they kept telling me, "Oh, you don't have a brother." Turns out I have a lot of them. My birth mother had two children before me, my older brother Wayne and my oldest sister, um, Kate, Linda. I'm blank. I have nieces too that all have the same name, so I'm trying to remember which one's which. And then on my birth father's side, it's the freaking Brady bunch. I mean, I know one sister lives in Holland, one sister's in Georgia somewhere, and there's about five or six more who've all passed, all in their 50s. Okay. And I've got 2.5 months to make it to my 60s, and then I can shoot a big bird at every one of them. But what it was my birth mother, both sides are bipolar. It runs rampant on both sides of my birth family. And of course, finding out I was that, I grew up as the only child, like I said, all of a sudden I have all these siblings. I've always said, what's it like to have siblings? Because I always wanted to know. Well, now I do. But the trauma of finding out was one thing that was terrible, but it informed because most, if not all, adoptees have a lot of mental things that go on in their lives, especially like being deserted or given up or things. I had those things without knowing it. And they say that even children who don't know, like what we're called as late discovery adoptees, which is a large and growing minority of people, especially in the 60s, they kept everything quiet. So people my age who were given the DNA test as a gift, oh boy, I've had people call me already who said, "Hey, I took a DNA test and my niece is not, but only half my niece." So in other words, their sister was a half sister and they didn't know it. So I mean, there's a whole lot of things that are going on, and there's a lot of trauma. And it's funny that people who are adopted, whether they know or not, are more likely to commit suicide, or more likely to have a mental illness, whether you know or not. And so there was a lot of trauma there for me. Especially, I always had a problem with being deserted. I never knew why. I was always so terrified of people leaving, even if they were abusive to you or mean to you. Instead of telling them to go F themselves, you hung on to them regardless. Okay, and that's a noted sign of children who were adopted that they just can't let go. And they're very compliant or they're really very rebellious. Me, I'm both. So that's what gets me in trouble is I want to be comply, I want to comply. And when I get to the rebellious part, I don't hang around, I'm gone. So that's why people who are bipolar specifically go through a lot of jobs because they're there because they love it until they don't. And when they don't, they're gone. They don't stay and try and work things out because that's the functional neurological disorder thing for me. I held everything in instead of telling people, from the pulpit to go, themselves and get right. I didn't do that. I would just, I would physically get sick without my choice of it, But anyway, the ketamine, the first thing I went in with intention of, thinking, trying to remember when I was adopted and trying to remember my birth mom. And for a moment, just a split second, I saw my mom and dad, the ones who raised me, and I felt a warm tear run down my face. And I looked up in my vision, whatever, and my birth mother was right there. And that was her crying as she was giving me up. And she said, I'm so sorry, I love you, but I'm too screwed up to be able to raise you. And that peace that I felt from that, I mean, whether it was real and that's really what happened,
right.
That's what my brain did. And that was the ketamine. I mean, the ketamine kind of takes the guardian, your subconscious, the id, whatever you want to call it, and it kind of pushes it aside. And it pushes it aside where you could deal with things that you normally would never even remember or you would not even want to get close to. And so I could, like I have a thing, it's a rough skin. And anything rough, like, like the sunflower, like our bee's nest, that shape, I'm terrified of it. But when I was, pretty much in the high of it, I came across that. And I mean, I hear God the whole time I'm there. I'm talking with the Lord the whole time, like Jesus. And I look at the bee thing and I'm like, yeah, okay. And so you can see things, you can deal with them, but you don't deal with them with the terror you normally would. And that's kind of like what ketamine does.
Wow.
And, I mean, I have not felt so at peace, like I said, in 30 years. And of course, 30 years ago, so I started, the bipolar really started coming up. So
it sounds like you're kind of experimenting. Have you experimented with anything else like psilocybin or anything like that? We hear a lot of.
Yet. But now here's the funny thing. One of I would say my peers, not in my cohort at school, he came like 1 or 2 years later after I started my degree program at Portland. His doctoral dissertation was on using psilocybin and ketamine for treatment within pastoral Christian counseling. And when I heard that, that's what got me thinking about ketamine. And I started researching it for a couple of months before I even decided to, pardon the pun, pull the trigger. But I was like, I prayed. I'm still miserable, and I believe prayer works, but, sometimes prayer, can only make your subconscious do a little bit. Sometimes I've seen people completely changed by it. Me, prayer has helped me stay alive, but I'm still, I've still had this depression. I've tried all kinds of medication. I've just done all things. I got to the point where I'm like, it's almost like instead of insulin resistant, I was diabetic, not anymore, by the way. It's almost like depression medication resistant, that it wasn't working. It was keeping me alive. But my thing is, when Christ says, I came to give you life and life more abundantly, I think that sometimes he means the medications that he's made in herbal plants, natural plants. And see, that's what this ketamine comes from. It comes from a natural plant. It comes from a natural thing. It's not just manufactured high. Like psilocybin, natural. And a lot of people say, oh, Christians shouldn't be partaking of that. And I'm like, well, when scripture where it says, give wine to somebody for this and give a strong drink for somebody who is depressed. Oh, wow, it's telling us to drink. Oh, no, it's not. Nah. I'm sorry to all those, Christians out there who think it's a sin to drink. You're wrong. Because if it's a sin to drink, then Jesus is a sinner too, and he can't be because he's God. So, and I will include other things such as Mary Jane and other things. But again, it's all about control with it. It's all about managing it and not just, living 24 hours a day on your couch eating Fritos and smoking a joint. That's not,
Amen.
like for me, the ketamine, I would not do it without it being medically necessary
Right.
because the high is so intense and it's you still, it's funny, you wear a mask, you wear one of those little things that you like you wear when you sleep, you wear that and you have headphones on, you're listening. And the weird thing is, even in the middle of it, you can pull it up and it's just like everything's normal. You pull it back down and you're out again. It's only like probably about 10, 15 minutes where you couldn't function because I'm 59, so I always have to pee. And of course, they say pee right beforehand. So I'll go pee and then I'll wait, I'll take it, I'll drop it. You hold it in your mouth for 15 minutes and you spit that out. And I'll go pee again, to make sure. And then sure enough, an hour later, I am flying high, dealing with whatever I'm dealing with, gotta pee. And I'm gonna tell you, if you've ever been drunk enough that you had to hold the walls to get to a toilet, that's how this is. I mean, and most people who are listening understand that feeling, and I hate that feeling. I hate being where I can't be in control as far as what I'm doing because I'm so,
It only
anxious
rarely,
about it.
only rarely happens to me. Even when I'm in
It's
my drinking mode, whatever, it doesn't happen very often. But yeah, a couple years ago, I described it as sliding home because I had to go up 3 flights of stairs when I got home, and it always kind of sneaks up on you. You're fine at the bar, and then when you get to your house, you're sliding up the stairs instead of walking, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm
you
drunk.
know, and it's weird because if people are old enough to remember a lava lamp, if you can take a lava lamp and get inside of it, that's
Oh, jeez.
kind of what it's like,
Yeah.
but it's morphing all the time. Now, here's the thing: I've done it 6 times.
Okay.
I'm the point now where I'm in the middle of the high. I can control what's going on. I can say, because it's just doing this the whole time. I'm like, instead of green, I really want that to be pink, and it would change. And so I'm at the point now
Wow.
where I'm able to speak to the high, and I can be more intentional about what I'm doing. So I'm like, it's funny. Sometimes things come up that I have no clue about that I wasn't expecting. The second time or third time I was in, I was just trying to think about the traumas and stuff I had. And all of a sudden, um, one of my family members who was murdered by another one of my family members accidentally, but they shot him trying to scare him, and unfortunately the bullet ricocheted and killed him.
Yay,
But
yay.
at that time, my whole point was to try and help everybody else in the family. And even though I was sad and I was mourning, I was too busy worrying about making sure everybody else was okay, which is what you do in my position in ministry and stuff too. You're always worried about everybody else.
Well, that's what happens. In a crisis mode, the leaders rise to the top, and you can always count on them to point and tell everyone what to do, and everyone falls in line because the leader just assumes his role naturally.
Yeah, for that didn't happen with me because I was 22 at the time, and I said, okay, this is what we need to do. Bum, 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 bum. And they're like, well, thank you for telling us, but we'll handle it, right? And then they ask a judge who lived across the street to come in and tell everybody what to do. And he goes, this is what you got to do. Boom, 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 boom. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay. And my cousins look at me like, didn't you just say that to them? And I'm like, yeah. But, again, I was 22 and they were, in their 50s and 60s. They weren't going to listen. But, I was able to at least be there for them. But the whole thing is, when I was having the ketamine trip, my uncle showed up in the middle of it and I got to talk to him. And I hadn't even thought about that being trauma in my life. Even though, yeah, having a family member murdered is probably one of those things you probably are going to deal with trauma wise. And I had not really dealt with it. So I dealt with it on that trip. So, that was a trauma. The other one, a year later, less than a year later, my best friend ever growing up committed suicide. And I ran into him in one of these things too. And I was able to process that. And, I had intentionally said, okay, I want to say my birth mom. I want to see my brother, Wayne, who was the one brother who knew I existed, because he was two. My birth mom actually, she gave me up. I went to foster care for the first 3 months. She decided she wanted me. So she went and got me and took me home. And I was there for a few weeks with my brother Wayne. He was two. So he remembered me. And of course, I didn't remember them cognitively, but I did on a subconscious level. Well, his whole life, he looked for me. And he actually had contacted the state of Georgia, and they said, "Yeah, you have a brother. He's here in Georgia, but we can't give him your name and we can't give you his name and phone number." Now he found this out probably November of 2012. In November 2012, he had a massive heart attack and died in his sleep. And the night before he died, this is my brother Wayne, he told my nieces, "I think I found him. We've been looking all this time. I want to find him. We got to find him." And he died that night. But he died with me on his mind. So part of the trauma that I'm having in my life is having somebody who sought me out, who loved me even though they didn't really know me, or they did know me, who knows. And that's what he did. I mean, it kind of reminds me of how God is, that God seeks us out. It doesn't matter, what kind of crappy person we are. He still wants to find all of us. My brother wanted to find me, and that really showed me about the love of Christ right there, that he didn't know me. I could have been a total tool, but he still wanted to find me because we were family. And now I'm become really close to his daughters. They're like daughters to me now. I'm Uncle Dan. But anyway, I ran into him, and we were wrestling in our dream like we would have if we'd have grown up together. And we ended up where he was about 5'8". I was 6 foot. So by the time we both got to be adults, I would have been towering over him and been bouncing him around because I know he had done it to me. So, but I had this wonderful vision. So I was able to come to peace with him, of seeing what it would be like, having him as a brother. So, and, I've run into a lot of other people in this. I've run into, all this trauma and stuff. But as this trauma has been forgiven, like my birth mother, I've worked at forgiving her for that, and like, I was born, she was married, but I was not the son of her husband. She was a prostitute, and I was just a $5 hello. That's where I came from. So, but, it's been interesting. It's, but I'll just say, I mean, I'm trying to figure out what I could do to be certified in helping people with ketamine, because like my friend from seminary, there are drug resistant people who drugs do not help. And unfortunately, because they feel like, oh, the church hasn't helped. Oh, so I'm going to go to alcohol, I'm going to go to drugs, and, there are some, and we're talking about non-prescribed stuff. They're going to try and take it in their own hands. And I'm like, no, you need to have a doctor prescribe. They prescribe this now. That's called Spiriva, by the way. It's a nasal inhalant. You go into a doctor's office, they check your blood pressure. They have medical staff there. So if anything happens, they're there. It's usually an hour long. It's a little different than what I do with the sublingual thing underneath my tongue. But it's, a lot of churches won't tell people do it because you get high. I'm like, well, you know what? You get high when they put you under to give you surgery, but that's okay.
Yeah, and you know what? Just as you're talking here, I'm just thinking about, my drug use has been strictly recreational.
Yeah.
And I smoke to get high. I don't drink to get drunk. I drink because I love beer and I love rum. And
same here. I love beer. But like I said, I used to be Baptist.
Getting drunk is just kind of a byproduct of consuming something I really enjoy. Even a couple of glasses of wine lately. I've been having a little bit of red wine here and there. But, this idea of using therapeutics or, these conventional recreational drugs under a guided medical procedure of, and also, I'm skipping over here, but they're kind of related. As I'm talking to you, my coaching, especially in Landmark, they got us clear on like communication heals everything and everyone. And what we suffer from is these incomplete circles. So when we walk by them, they're like hooks and they tear our flesh. I think, I can't remember who Covey, I think, was the guy that said you have the conversation, you close these circles, so when you walk by them, they bounce off you, they don't hook you anymore. And sometimes it's just a matter of saying, I'm sorry, or hearing, I'm sorry. And it doesn't matter if they're dead or alive, as you're clearly demonstrating, messages from the other side or from God or from relatives, even in a fog of drug-induced, therapy, you can get complete by hearing or speaking words. And they coached us in Landmark, like, if they're dead, write the letter out and read it to the chair. Imagine them there, and when you're done, you feel like you're just cleaned. And so, it's kind of like a pop psych course, Landmark Education, or Landmark Worldwide, they call it right now, but I highly recommend it. But they have so many of these distinctions that changes the way you think about everything. But most of it comes back to communication, completing the circles, getting complete. They call them enrollment conversations. So powerful. I think if you've been in my men's group for more than a couple months, you've probably heard me talk about, and this kind of like playing junior Landmark forum leader, and they warn against doing that. It's like, pretending to be a spiritual leader when you really don't have your shit together. Anybody can be a spiritual leader, but this idea of take responsibility for the inauthenticity. So for my mother, when she had the conversation with me, she's like, you know what? All your life, I tried to make you like me. I was 20 when I had you. What did I know? I thought that's what I was supposed to do. Now you're 40, or I was 35 at the time or something. And now I'm realizing I've never supported you to be your own man. I don't know where you get your smarts from. Stop me if you're your father. Like, I think your Green Party's crazy. I think your Nature's Hemp things is nuts. And then, complete strangers come up to me and go, I'm voting for this guy. He's brilliant, and he's the head of the Conservative Riding Association, and I'm running green. And she's like, oh, my kid knows what he's doing? I thought he was just a fool, you know what I mean? So she said, I've never supported you your whole life. And the most important part of that conversation is the impact. Acknowledging the impact of your inauthenticity, your way of being that doesn't work for the relationship, the impact of that. And then when you get hypothetical about the impact, it kind of like, I talk about writing all the impacts on little pieces of paper and ripping them up and then filling a tub full of them, so you're like theoretically soaking in the impact. If you invent impacts on you and the world after it ricochets across the pond, the impact should break you when you're talking to someone. And when you're getting clear on the impact, the person you're having the conversation with is wondering, what did you do with mom? What did you do with Jimmy? What did you do with the dad? Like, who are you right now? And then you commit to a new way of being, which in my mother's case was supporting you no matter what. And then asking for accountability, that's step 4. I'm a machine. I'm going to go back to my old ways of being. When I go back to being unsupportive, and right before she died, we're coming home from her radiation treatment. She says, Jimmy, I really got away from that whole commitment to support, eh? I'm sorry. And, usually it would be me poking her and go, hey, Ma, what about that support? Keeping her accountable. So the 4th part, so identify the inauthenticity, acknowledge the impact, commit to a new way of being, and ask for accountability on staying that way. And it's a powerful conversation. And I'm quite convinced, and even as I'm hearing you talk, and we're talking about this guided meditation on therapeutics, and then you getting complete with people, dead people that you've met in a hallucination, well, maybe not a hallucination, but a trip, nonetheless. I'm not offending you by mistitling what you're going through, but there's nothing that can't be fixed by getting complete with words. Is that crazy? Like, how crazy is that? Peterson puts it best. We think in words, and if we can't speak, we can't think. That's why free speech is so important to this guy. And I get it, because we think with our language. Anyway, I'm done.
Just remember, words are still vibration. Even color is vibration. It's energy ultimately, but it's vibration. And, everything, that's kind of, it's not really what it means per se, but like when it says in the beginning was the word, it's not talking about a word like comes out of our mouth, but really the Greek there, it's almost, you can almost say it's in the beginning was the dancing. In the beginning was the celebration. In the beginning was the vibration. Because that's really what logos means. Logos doesn't mean like a physical word. That's glossolalia, which is a different thing. That's other words in the Greek, but in the beginning was the word. In the beginning was that vibration. Remember what it talks about in the Old Testament where the Spirit of God hovered over the water? You ever seen something hover? It doesn't do like this. There's vibration going on. Even if it's like, it actually, when it talks about hovering over the water, it's talking about a mother hen's wing over its children, protecting the brood. There's imagery is whole part of it. But again, remember, color is vibration. Music is vibration. That's why in words are vibration. And if you look at energy, it's little things of vibration. Now, something you said was interesting is like I do funerals for various people. Some are in the church, who we say they're Christian. Others, not so much. You're like, how do you do a sermon for somebody who never said they were Christian? Well, it's actually kind of easy. I still use my Christian theology, but what I said is, a lot of times I'll say, for Christians, we believe that that we're in Christ, that we're going to live eternally. But I said, science also says that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It only changes form. And so therefore, the person who just died, they didn't stop to exist, they changed form. And that goes along with Christian theology, but giving people hope. And see, I believe that we change form. I was watching, I encourage everybody to watch it. It's Josh Gates' Expedition. I think it's Expedition Unknown, I think is what it's called. And Josh, he's always looking for stuff. He did a series of 4 that were about life after death. In one of them, he talked to a scientist who's measuring the room and stuff when somebody dies. And they've had some beginning proof that when the person dies, that the spirit doesn't disappear. In other words, they're not annihilated. They're still, I don't know exactly, I can't remember exactly the method. But we're talking about a scientist who has no Christian reason to see that what happens. He just does it anyway. But it's on Josh Gates. That's the first show. But incredible. But I look at science like a lot of people. I like talking to people who don't believe. I love talking to atheists. I love the question, where did God come from? Because I always give the answer, nowhere. They're like, wait a minute, you just say God didn't, no, I'm like, God didn't come from anywhere. We only assume God comes from somewhere because we're locked into a timeline where we think linearly. It has to come from somewhere, it has to go somewhere. No, it doesn't. Only just in our existence. And what I'll do is, I don't try to prove God using the Bible, even though I love the Word of God. It's a foundation for my life. But people who don't believe in God, how do you prove God? Well, you don't use the Bible, because use the Bible, they're going to stop listening. I use a beer.
Here's how you prove God, Dan. This is just coming to me now. But I like to go back in the conversation to where, theoretically, in the conversation, okay, so we're here. My atheist friend is here, and I'm over here. Here we agree on something. Here we agree that Jesus was a man and was on the earth, and he did some pretty wild shit. Almost 100% of the people will not deny the fact that Jesus was a historical figure. All right? Now, if it turns, and I joke about this, but it's half joking. I made a deal with God a long time ago. I'm hedging my bets. It doesn't cost me anything to believe in him. And if I get up there and I'm wrong, I'm not penalized at all. If I go the other way, I'm screwed when I get up there. If I've been, disavowing him. If you're Christian and you believe what I believe. But also, whether you look at an ocean or you look at the Hoover Dam, not that that's somehow it's from God because man built it, but you look at these natural wonders, or you just look at a grain of sand or a rock or a flower, and you can see God in anything. And this point for so many people is, I think most people will, I think a majority, maybe a slim majority, will say Yeah, there's something higher. If it's not a god, they call it the universe. They call it the oversoul. There's something higher intelligence than us. And if I get up there to find out that we're an alien ant farm, I will not be surprised. I'll go, okay, I was wrong. Jesus still was a cool guy, and I'll still be a Christian when I get up there. But then, and that's, I think one of my pastors says, if it turns out that there's aliens, then my Christianity goes out the window. And I'm like, whoa, that's an easy out. What happened? Well, because, couldn't have God created the aliens or whatever? Because I think, there's a pretty good chance there's another civilization out there, and we're finding more evidence of it all the time. But anyways, I'm starting to wander now. Maybe you can just save me and pick me up. I think I've lost my train of thought.
Well, read C.S. Lewis's science fiction trilogy. I mean, all the books, the first two specifically, are about aliens. About other civilizations. One which was fallen when they got there, and the other which is pre-fall, and they were there at the time where they were being tempted by the evil one. And of course, again, we're talking C.S. Lewis. Okay, it's science fiction, but at the same time, is it? C.S. Lewis was always telling stories, fairy tales. Oh, Aslan the Lion, one of my favorite images of Christ ever. I love how he submitted himself to the queen, but when she said something that he didn't like, he roared and she cowered. I mean, think about it. The Lord God of the universe submitted himself to be killed, but yet still had the authority to scare the one who was going to do the killing. I mean, that just tells you about, in my view of who Christ is, for one. But we're talking a lion, and we're talking about beavers and stuff. You're like, well, though, that has nothing spiritual. Oh, yeah, it does. C.S. Lewis was brilliant in his metaphors. I mean, all the stuff in his things are metaphors. And, going into Pelandria and Out of the Silent Planet, and I went blank on the third one. Incredible books. But if aliens shows up here, I'm just going to say, hey, just like I would somebody who was an alien from another country. It's going to be, I'm just like, I don't care. My job is to love everything. My job is to love creation. Alien shows up, guess what? They were created. There's only one thing, one person, I think in Jesus, but one God is the one who did the creation. So therefore, there's not a separate creator for that. Ultimately, there's one creator. And people say, well, if the aliens show up, they're demons. You've been reading too much Tim LaHaye. I mean, I know God rest his soul, but
here's the other thing that I think that backs me up is like, okay, so you want to go with the Big Bang Theory. What the statistical
great show, great TV show.
You know what the statistical chances of some matter imploding and it creating human consciousness out of one-celled amoebas, and if you don't think there was not a magic force that guided that, even if it's real and scientific and you believe in how the universe was formed, there's no way that it could be done without a creator. With God a sense of humor, creating. Too.
Think about it. God loves creating. Like in Scripture, we read in English, let us, plural, make man in our own image. But really, when you look at the Hebrew, he's not making us an image, he's making us an imager. In other words, he's making us like him. He's creator. Why do you think we build these big skyscrapers? Why do you think we make art? Why do you think we do music? Because we're following in the footsteps of our creator. God was, and so that's the whole thing. And we're supposed to be making art. Why would he not make a billion worlds full of a billion images who are making art and continuing the creation? Because they say that the universe is expanding, right?
Yeah, that's the theory.
I think it's expanding because God's still creating. There's still worlds that haven't even been formed yet. that there eventually is going to be created beings there. See, we think, oh, that couldn't be because the Bible is dealing with mankind, humans here on earth. The Bible is dealing with us. So all the history outside of that doesn't mean it's not happening. It just means it's not important to us. So like, well, how come it didn't talk about whether God will save demons or not? Because it doesn't apply to us. That's his job to worry about that. It's not my job. God, there's, even Jesus said, in the scripture, if everything was written about him, and he said the whole world will be filled with books. Now, okay, I love books, so therefore I'm okay with that. But to a point, in other words, there's so much more about God than just the Bible has. The Bible tells us everything we need to know to have a relationship with him. Beyond that, it's okay. It's like, yeah, God doesn't mention Hefeweizen in the scripture, though it's my favorite beer. Okay. Does that mean I don't drink iced tea? It's not in scripture either. Now in the South, sweet tea is like next to godliness to drink that, but it's not mentioned in scripture. So do we not drink sweet tea because, it doesn't talk about sweet tea, mint julep, no, it tells us to love each other, to follow Christ as our rabbi. Those are the things. So, aliens, ET shows up, I'm going to say, hey, do you guys do you know Jesus where you're from? Do you know, who created you? What's your religion? What's your faith? I want to hear them. I want to hear what they say, and I'm going to say, okay, I don't agree with you on some theological issues, but the base thing of any religion, if you look at any of the religions we have on earth, the very base of it is a hunger for God. It may be completely, in my opinion, some religions wrong theologically, all the things they add to it, which is what we all do. We add crap to religion that we shouldn't. But ultimately, anybody I talk to, I get their hunger for God. And so there's where you find your common ground. We both hunger for our Creator. Scientists, they don't realize it. They're like, I'm trying to find the truth of that. You're hungering for your Creator. You just don't use the right words. They don't get that you're hungering for the truth, which is our Creator. You're digging for bones that are 1,000,000 years old. You're hungry. I want to see how we got here. Creator! Sorry.
Settle down.
You should see me on stage doing stand-up comedy, man.
Here's a nice transition. A friend of mine, let's call him Baldy, from Canada and St. Catharines, Jamie Spee says, I want to shoot myself right now. I only replied, how can I help? Shani McFanny, what is up? She's getting in and saying she's a Christian, and there's all kinds of stories in the Bible about aliens. Savage One on YouTube says, I thought this was about listings in the DR. I said, not tonight. Turner gets in. Dan, you forgot to add Mariah Carey to music you hate.
I love Mariah Carey. I just like to diss her during Christmas time.
Right, okay. So Turner's getting in here and there. Reynolds, what's up? Renee Hand from the left coast of Canada. Savage, what's up, Jimmy?
That's a great coast. That's a great place.
I've never been to the left coast in Canada, only in the States. I've been out west in the States, down in Canada. Yeah, it's supposed to be gorgeous. I got a couple friends of mine out there, and they said, why'd you go to the DR? If you had to come left, you wouldn't never gone south. I'm like, I don't know. I don't ever see myself going back to Canada now, but it's been over 2 years. Bro, what are you working on bit-wise? Do you have a book? Are you like... How do we get the funny out? Like, you're not going on stage anymore, especially after COVID and whatever. We got locked down and our lives got rearranged and stuff. So I can only imagine how yours has been upset as far as some of the things. But how do we get the funny out? What are you doing?
Well, I'm starting, like I said, as I'm starting to drive right now, I'm pretty much limited at night to other comedians picking me up, take me where I'm going. So it's like a couple of days a month right now. It's not a lot. I was doing, a couple of nights a week in Athens, Georgia, primarily. I'm coming up the third Thursday of the month at Jittery Joe's in Bethlehem, Georgia. which, is actually their 365. It's actually a real town. And they, like I'm a member of Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem. So, hey, or Nativity Lutheran is really what it's called. But, yeah, I'm actually getting ready to start a book. And the first book is actually, it's with I say a bunch, several of my people that I know who are all adopted. And we want to do stories about adoptees. And so that's a book that I'm wanting to write. As far as comedy goes, I'm getting ready to launch more comedy videos online for now until I can drive more and get out more and do more events. Comedy wise, I actually have started a monastic, it's not, I'd say monastic order, it's a religious order for comics. And it's there's no requirements as far as where they're at in their faith. It's just literally, if you have questions about spirituality and you're a comic, hey, you're a part. It's called it's the Dominican Order of St. Lawrence. And St. Lawrence, because he's actually the patron saint of comics. The reason why is because when they were martyring him, they were cooking him over a fire. Halfway through, he looks over and says, hey, flip me over. I'm undone on this side. So, so even in his death, he was making jokes. So that's what I'm doing there. But I do have on YouTube, I have a couple of videos, one of which is me doing stand-up. And it's, gosh, I'll have to get you the link here. You can post it sometime. But the main thing is hit me up as on Facebook, Facebook, Dan Payne, that's me. But right now I'm just local to Atlanta, even though I would definitely love to get invites to go other places. And I'm good at church. I'm good at a bar. I'm good at a pub. I don't care. I won't be drinking at the church unless they have wine for communion. Then I'll drink the rest of it. But that's just me.
I've been doing interviews for a while. Mm-hmm. I've been pretended to be a DJ since Dougie Peacock and me had the cassette with the microphones plugged into it and record down and the volume set up and the music coming in the background, and we went to town being DJs. And so I'm good at this. I know what I'm not good at. And but this fairly easy. Even doing the radio was radio was my thing with a producer and my own music and a newsroom and a station and oh man, that was just the shit, right? So I'm hearing, oh my God, my guest is wrapping up. I had to put my cheaters on to look down. It's already 9:01, 9:02. It's like an hour blew by. No wonder my guest is wrapping up. I'm going overtime with him. I promised you an hour, and now I've already kept you over past my commitment to you.
I could go 2 more hours. I really could.
Jamie Species probably not here anymore because you probably went to find a gun, but, there's some people that are going, oh, no, not 2 hours of this, no.
Not with this guy. I mean, come on, he's crazy. But hey, I am bipolar, but and it can be a challenge. I mean, it does have its ups and downs, but it's it's a little back and forth with it. But I enjoy. Of course, being a stand-up comedian, I can go longer than the time they give me easy.
Are you a clean Christian stand-up comedian, or do you risk your license every time you take the stage?
I'm clean. Sometimes it depends on where I'm at. I write everything clean, which is what my comedy teacher Josh Harris taught. Always write it clean because you can always make it dirty. But if you write something dirty, making it clean is not easy.
Dan, can you do stand-up? I'm not asking you to do this by any means right now, but can you perform stand-up sitting in a chair like I am right here with a microphone in front of me? Now, my stuff, I'm just funny, okay? Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean I'd be a good comedian. But much of, what Gavin McKenna says, comedy is just telling stories. And we've all got funny stories, and we all know how to tell them really well. And my stories are and they're all based in a little bit of truth, but then they go wildly off course for the humor, so the Jimmy Fallon can come out, right? So my comedy, and I started keeping a list because I had a bet with Josh Mills, I think, yeah. Josh Mills and I made not a bet, but like a vow to each other that by a certain amount of time we would both have attempted stand-up comedy. And so long after we broke that vow, I started writing some funny stuff down. And, I always call Gavin McInnes on Thursday nights. Oh, shit, I'm missing my show. I got to go. And run a bit on him, And one of them's, it's all out there. I've done them publicly, and my clips are out. But YouTube did take all of Gavin McInnes' stuff off YouTube. Like anything with his name in it. Not only, I had private stuff with no description, unlisted that they found. And it wasn't even his, I don't know how they did it. But they scrubbed everything he's ever done and everything I've ever done on his show as a caller as a result of it. They got everything on both my channel, on everyone's channel. But he always, talking about my stories are, the violent sex bit. So my stories are sex stories or toilet stories, to put it a little cleaner.
Not toilet stories. They're great.
And those are there's so many of them. And they're all hilarious.
Well, it's part of my bit, one of my parts of my bit is I talk about having a colonoscopy for the first time. And I've done it in church and I've done it in a club. And the church I did it were all people who were over 50. So they've all had it. So it was funny to them. But I've done it in church where people were under 50 and who haven't. They're like, I can't believe you're talking about colonoscopy because you're in church. But it really, so in other words, I have middle school boys' bathroom humor is pretty much my thing. Even when I was doing sermons, I was interim pastor at church. I was doing sermons where you use illustrations of Brad and Janet, my friends Brad and Janet, and they had a friend named Frankenfurter, right? But I would talk about Brad and Janet during sermons. And I would look out there and there'd be 3 people out there just dying laughing because they knew exactly who I was talking to. I look out and go, sinners, and then I would just keep on going. Nobody had a clue that I'd just been talking about Rocky Horror Picture Show. My friends Brad and Janet broke down. They were lucky this guy was there to help them, and they served a meatloaf for a meal and stuff like that. So if you've seen Rocky Horror, you get it. But my kind of humor,
it's one of
there are multiple levels to it.
I've never seen Star Wars, E.T., the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and until about 10 years ago, I had never seen Deliverance. So I went out and got myself a good film. I always knew the taglines of Deliverance, but I had never seen the movie. And then one day it dawned on me, and somebody said, Jimmy, are you kidding? An absolute classic. And so I went and got me some Deliverance. And great flick. But then a couple years later, and I did this the other night, I'm just getting over either dengue fever or the flu, but I was sidelined 10 days. And I don't ever remember having the flu. Maybe as a kid, stomach flus and stuff like that, but I don't ever remember getting the flu, ever. And so I think it was either dengue or the flu. But anyways, I was flat on my back and cruising, looking for something to distract me on the TV. Pulp Fiction. I went in, and I've seen Pulp Fiction. I bet you I've seen it 10 times. But I have this keen mental ability to just forget everything that I've ever seen when it comes to movies, I guess. Because I did, at the end, I'm like, no. But all the way through, I got this big smile on my face. And anyways, I went the one day, years after I'd seen Deliverance for the first time. And again, I appreciated it as a good movie. And I didn't realize that there's only a few movies you can go back and appreciate again. And Deliverance isn't one of them. It's not a feel-good flick. The second time I watched it, I'm like, what are you doing? No, I'll never watch this again. It was great the first time, the concept and everything. But I really enjoyed Pulp Fiction the other day. Wow, that opening scene.
I've never watched that movie.
Oh, the opening scene with Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson is classic. They're just busting each other, and it's just meaningless conversation, and it's such a classic. So,
it's there are certain movies that I could watch 1,000 times. It's like Scott Pilgrim versus the World, set in Toronto. That I love that movie. It's I guess any movie that breaks the fourth wall for me is fun. Like Deadpool, same thing. Just fourth
for
wall
me, my
breaking.
classics are Jacob's Ladder, Tim Robbins' first flick. What a film.
Mm-hmm.
Angel Heart with Lisa Bonet and Mickey Rourke. That was crazy, especially the ending is nuts. And I guess I got to put Pulp Fiction up there because what an absolute classic. But you know what? I'm so disappointed by new movies. If they keep me, I don't know, some comedian, Ryan Reynolds or something, his latest one that came out a couple years ago, like it was really entertaining. You know, it was funny, and so it kept me. But the great movies have like disappeared. You know, there's the one I was getting to is anytime Fight Club comes on, yeah, I'll watch it with commercials. If I flick through and I see Fight Club, I'm done. I gotta watch it. Again, not a real good feel-good movie, but Fight Club's just another classic flick.
It is really incredible movie. There's so much about it that, I mean, if you want to understand mental illness, that's one of the movies to watch.
Amen.
That one's absolutely incredible with that. And there's a lot of them that are really good with that. And, you know, there are some that aren't. Some of them.
I like when you get to the end, and Jacob's Ladder and Angel Heart are both like this. You get to the end, and you're like, what? It's like a slap, and you didn't know what was going on the whole movie because it tells you in the end. Yeah, I like the endings when there's a twist at the end, and some of my favorite movies are those ones.
Yeah, like I See Dead People. What was that movie?
Yeah, I can't remember now, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, Tom Hanks movie.
And then, isn't it weird how these movies can mean so much to you when they came out and when we saw them, and you try to go back to revisit them, and you're like, oh, jeez, what kind of culture was I living in for this to be classified good entertainment?
Yeah, I can think of some movies I just adored when I was a kid, and I look back and go, now. But some movies that I was like, ooh, then I'm loving now, because it's just sometimes it really. Most people don't realize the movies weren't written for you or about you. It just happens that you resonate with it because there's something in it that we find ourselves. We find ourselves in that movie somehow. And it's like war movies. I would never want to ever shoot somebody, but I love seeing people get shot in war movies. Especially them dang gum Nazis. Shoot them Nazis.
You know what I've been watching lately? It's funny you say that. World War II in color or something. It's a new series out. I think the narrator's the guy. Star Wars is another one I haven't seen. I think he's like the Black Jedi or something like that. He's got a very distinct voice.
James Earl Jones.
I think that's who. No. That's.
I know you're talking about.
I don't even. I'm saying it wrong, but I think it was. They always talk about the Black Jedi or something like that.
He also was in.
Not the Jedi.
Gosh,
those machines.
Samuel Jackson.
Yeah, no, he's classic too. But anyway.
But yeah, I tell you, I just love all that. Like any John Cusack movie, I pretty much love too. High Fidelity is probably my favorite one of his. But just you mentioned Tim Robbins earlier. Tim's in this movie. I mean, he's kind of like Adam Sandler. If you've been in one of his movies, you're in every one of them ever. And the history of the planet, you're in every one of them. I mean, I'm surprised Chris Farley's Ghost is not in the Adam Sandler movies because that's how Adam does his thing. He rolls with that. So, which, all right. I want to be in an Adam Sandler movie. Heck.
Savage says Stand By Me. Stand By Me is a classic, too.
Oh, yes. And,
and
Jerry
said Red Fox. We were going through some old roasts of the Dean Martin years and stuff like that. Man, those guys are vicious. And Red Fox was one of the best. And, Sanford and Son was super clean, too, right? But he was a monster on stage.
Maybe without cussing. I would love to see it when it was being
What was his
filmed.
album called? Wipe Your Damn Ass or something? What was it called?
I don't know. I mean, oh, man. It's like Aunt Esther, man. She was a hoot. I mean, she was great off stage.
Have you seen the meme of Trump being Sanford and the crazy chick coming in being Nancy or somebody? No. It's the one with the horrible face, the black girl and Southern. She's always calling for violence on Trump. Get him! Go get him in the restaurants. Get him in the Maxine Waters.
Oh, that was. She's from California. Maxine Waters.
Maxine Waters. I think they got her as Esther, and Trump as Sanford. It's classic. I don't know who put it up, but
I can imagine too much of that because I grew up watching, Fred Sanford. So that was my favorite TV shows ever.
Chico and the Man. That was a good one back then.
Oh man, Freddie Prinze.
I grew up on Barney Miller and MASH and Chico and the Man Sanford and Son. Oh my gosh.
Yep. Brady Bunch,
Yeah.
Partridge Family,
Uh-huh.
Munsters, Adams Family, all those. We had all those, and I loved every one of them.
Hilarious House of
I'll give you a
Frankenstein.
short story. I met Butch Patrick one time. I was at the Comic-Con thing, right? And it was an interview thing. He was up at the table on stage, and everybody's asking questions about Eddie Munster, Eddie Munster, Eddie Munster. And I raised my hand to ask a question. I said, "What was it like being on Dickie Roberts' Child Star?" Nothing to do with the Munsters. He sat there, he bowed his head and just started dying laughing because I was the only person who mentioned anything he had done besides that one role when he was a kid. And Butch is such an interesting person. He's done so much, especially with cars. I mean, the hot rods he's got are incredibly cool. And, everybody just knows him for that one thing, and it was just kind of funny. But the Munsters, that was my favorite of the two. If I had to choose between them and the Addams Family, it was the Munsters. That was my show, which he said something really powerful. He said it was interesting that the Addams Family, the people there, they were monsters and they represented us. But the Munsters were the monsters, but the people in the Munsters were the evil ones, not the monsters. And so you can't judge a person because the Addams Family looked normal pretty much, but they were monsters. They were humans, but the monsters were monsters. It just, I heard that from him and I'm like, whoa, spiritual stuff coming from the old TV shows. It was like really cool. So
Have you caught Gervais and Chappelle's new specials?
yeah.
I love Gervais. I think he's great. And I love Chappelle too.
Both.
Yeah.
Like Gervais, absolutely not Christian in any sense of the word,
No.
as far as what churches would say. But he has more truth about God in his atheistic kind of sound. I don't think it's really atheism going on there. It's not.
I totally agree. Not specifically with Ricky Gervais, but atheism is unstoppable. Is a guy named Devin Tracy. He's been canceled from every platform, demonetized, debanked. He's with Gavin with the Misfits, on censored.tv. And he praises God more than most Christians that I know. He doesn't use the Lord's name in vain all the time, but I guess "oh my God" would be an example of that. But I'm like, and I always hashtag God bless AIU. Atheism is unstoppable. All my hashtags, and I've clipped many of him where he's just praising God flat out, and he's a total atheist.
Well, I will say this. The problem, most atheists, really, the ones I talk to, don't have a problem with God. They have a problem with people who follow God. That's where most of their ammunition is because their whole aim is to deflate people who say there's a God. Their whole thing is they're really, it's more anti-theist than it is.
My crew is against church, organized religion. They're not offended by the idea of God and probably would admit at some level that there's a higher power, no matter what you call it, but they just hate organized religion, period.
And they hate Christian organized religion specifically. Because most of them, I'm actually part of several atheist meme groups where they put memes about religion and stuff. And I'm dying laughing on most of these. Now, again, if my Christian friends saw the ones I was laughing at, they would say that I was lost and going to hell. But
Dan, sorry to interrupt, but can you imagine being offended by your religion? Like, there is nothing about you can say about me as a Christian man that would offend me. Like, I can't. There, in parts of the world, especially in these days, they're going to the grave over their religion. I don't care enough to fight over my religion. And I don't need to defend it. And there's nothing you can say to offend me. There's no image. I might find it distasteful, and but can you imagine being offended by your religion? It's just so ridiculous.
Usually, if something offends me, I have to go back and look at it again and figure out why it offended me. And most of the time, it offends my belief, not my relationship. It challenges my belief system, and that's where most people get offended. Oh, you're challenging my belief. You made a cartoon about my prophet. Oh, I'm in trouble now. You made a cartoon about Mary. Oh, how you're going to hell. Oh, it's not. And it's like, did it really cause God to come off his throne? People say, oh, you're knocking God off his throne. You're taking God's throne. I'm like, yeah, no. That's like saying you go up to Tyrus, the wrestler, and take his wallet out of his pocket with him standing there. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Oh, you had to use
God is
Tyrus
too
as an
big to knock
example.
off his throne. He's too big to be insulted. Now, where he hurts is when we say, I don't want any part of you. That's what hurts him. It doesn't knock him off his throne. It hurts him because he loves us.
I wish Gutfeld would turf that turkey.
Oh, yeah, really. Gutfeld is one of my favorite.
He's
people
bright. He's bright.
ever.
Yeah, he's bright.
He's we watch him almost every night, and I probably watch most of his shows, that he has on, because he actually takes time to think through the issues. Yeah, is he an ideologue? Yeah, he is. But we all are in some place. But he can make fun of himself, and that's why I love him. And he's like a lot of these guys on TV. They're talking to people on the thing. They're not really thinking the audience is listening. Gutfeld always acknowledges the audience and says what the audience would say if they actually could call in.
Yeah, he's very careful, and I guess he probably could be accused of being a little middle of the road, but he's on Fox. I mean, what the hell? But the other day, and I don't watch network TV hardly at all anymore, but when I was watching it, I would often catch, not often, but a few nights here and there, I tune in and watch it because he is funny, and I think he writes a lot of his own stuff. But they were talking about the Middle East and the conflict going on, and they said something about the Jews, and it went back. They threw it back to Gutfeld, and he was thrown at the commercial, and he just said something really like, "Oh no." And after the statement, you could have easily said, "Oh, what a hateful thing!" And because of maybe they're talking about the Holocaust or something like that. And he just threw out two words. I'm like, "Oh my God, he's dead! He's good. You can't do that. You can't be funny like that." Like this idea that, and this is why I like Chappelle and Gervais, because they're God right now in the comedy world. They're the biggest things ever, right?
They're
and
incredible.
they're not shying away from being canceled and stuff like that. And they tried to cancel me too because I said bad words. And I'm like, come on. And they came after me saying I hated women and how dare you and abortion this and that and this, that and that. I'm like, oh, what? You never said a bad word before? You never called somebody an asshole? But that's basically what I did. So shut up. Get out of here.
This whole thing about
We're so
cussing,
freaking sensitive now.
but think about the word. Even the word cussing, it comes from cursing. Cursing's not about using words foul words. That's not what cursing is saying. I hope you die and your children die and they get rabies, and you're putting a curse on them. When the scripture talks about cursing, it's talking about using, honestly, pagan ritual to curse someone so that their life is bad or so that their head falls off. That's a curse. A curse has nothing to do with saying, you mother, I didn't say it.
That was a little experiment. I'm going to go back and run that. And I'm pretending now, but it's good for a little bit. That was an experiment to see how fast you could take Ricky Gervais and Chappelle back to scripture.
Oh yeah,
it was about 20 seconds, maybe 30.
I can do that. Hey, I can take any comic and take you back to scripture because most every one of them comes from a religious background. At some point. I mean, Sam Kinison being my favorite one ever.
Oh, wow.
He was a preacher. He was a Pentecostal preacher before he got divorced. And when he got divorced, the church kicked him out, real Christian of him. And, he had to and he was good on stage. And guess what? No.
And he was clean when he died, too. After all that nastiness, he was, sober.
Yeah, he was, he was an incredible person. I mean, my abbot, who's actually my bishop in the order that I'm a part of, I mean, he was a stand-up comedian for years and years, and he
What's
got in
this
trouble.
order? You need to explain. Sorry, you can get back to your story if you can remember it. But Dominican, what's the Dominican order? Why Dominican?
Well, Saint Dominic.
Oh, Dominican. I see.
Well, Dominican, like it would be like you got Dominicans are unlike Franciscans. Franciscans cloister. They go into like they have like a monastery and they stay there most of the time. A lot of the different monastic orders they stay in a cloister.
Okay, you got to slow down. Monastic order.
Monastic order, like if you go like there's a religious order near here in Georgia. It's the cathedral. I think it's Cathedral Holy Spirit. I can't remember exactly, but there's a monastic order there. You can go there and you can see all the different monks there, and they go to a place and they stay, and they all live in a communal environment. That's a monastic. That's a monastery, and their monastic order. The Dominicans are monastic, but we're called friars. A friar is somebody who travels around and goes to various places all the time. They don't go to a cloister. They will cloister. Cloister means they're just coming together. But, we will do that once or twice a year. We'll all come together and hang out and whatever else we're doing, drinking, whatever. We do that quite a bit. But the friars, that's why I said the order for comedians, they're also called friars. What do comedians do all the time? They roast people, okay? So there's a lot of play on words. That's why it's Dominican, but also because comedians are always going everywhere. They're itinerant ministers. I mean, every comedian, even if they don't realize it, every comedian is a minister because they're helping people laugh. And laughter is laughter is part of creation. That God laughs. He laughs at us, but it's actually a fun way. He's laughing. Like you look at your children and they do something stupid. You're like, you moron. But you think it's funny. You shouldn't put that little spoon in the light socket. You shouldn't do it. But you won't do that again. And you're laughing at their stupidity, but you're also feeling because you did the same thing. Now God's a little different, but God laughs at us when we just, when we do dumb things, sometimes he probably laughs like, oh, I burned the chicken. God has a way of laughter, but that's why he gave us laughter. And comedians are probably, and now I'm going to get in a lot of trouble with this. Comedians do more for society to help heal them than most preachers and poets ever do.
Oh, really? Okay. You're really putting yourself out there, Dan.
I mean, how many people are saying I'm going to hell now for that? But, but because, again, there's times where laughter is not appropriate, but
there's never a time when it's not appropriate.
I mean, and I've been guilty. Every funeral I've ever done, they're all laughing, and I'm like, why are you laughing? This person's dead right here, and they laugh more. I've said that before, and I'm like, oh. Because the whole point is for them to laugh. I mean, the dead person, they've gone on, they're with the Lord. They're okay, But again, I told them it's okay to cry. It's okay to yell and scream at God for this. It's okay to do that, but we have to get back to laughter because what we're doing with laughing is we're breathing. It's actually getting those things out. It causes catharsis. It helps us to heal. What better way to do something than to heal people with laughter? And, that's what I do. I mean, I get up there and I act a fool on stage, I act out walking to the bathroom after doing ketamine and holding on to the wall and they're dying. They're like, here's this minister who's talking about being stoned on ketamine. I'm like, well, yeah, okay, it was prescription, but still, But, I take my real life and lay it out there. I mean, talk about colonoscopy, okay? Talking about getting lost in the Vatican and using a bathroom that I realize is the Pope's. Now, I really didn't do that, but, like my joke was there, it's like Europe, the bathroom scene is so weird. Everywhere you go, you flush a different way. And I had to go to the bathroom in the Vatican. So I was looking and I got on this elevator, the guy told me to, and I ended up, and there was this toilet. It was really beautiful. I had a lot of crosses. I used it, but when I got up, there was no place to flush it. And I'm like, I realized it was in the Pope's bathroom. I'm like, oh, Lord, please help me, Lord. And as soon as I did the sign of the cross, it flushed. So, so this is how I use religion, okay? This is how I think about faith, I really wasn't in there, but I will say the British toilets are the hardest to flush, especially if they have the 3 shells. But anyway, I won't go there anymore.
I got to get out of here, man. I really appreciate your time. Dude, there's 2 times in my men's group where they make me feel like I'm not special. I love that because those are my boys, right? And I remember being, it was 7:30 Thursday mornings at the church in Scott Street. It used to be in St. Catharines, now they're out in Niagara Lake. Me coming into men's group and confessing that I said, God, if you're there, and then I went, what the what did I just say? Like, I was so hurt that I had questioned his existence for a second. And I came to, and I confessed to my guys, and they're like, dude, what the, you're not special. But they would never say that, but that's always how I felt after they would just take 2 sentences to explain it to me. And then I remember passionately saying, what the fuck, or something to God. I'm like, oh, I swear when I pray too. I didn't know that.
That's real prayer right there.
I just started getting better at praying for thank you, because usually it's when I'm broken on my knees and I have got nothing else. You know what I mean? It's like he's my last resort. But now I'm way better at going, thank you, got you, I love you, thank you, brother.
I mean, think about it. If a 3-year-old called you a dummy, would you be hurt by it?
No. I love my
If a 3-year-old cussed, you'd be like, oh, you shouldn't cuss, but then you would laugh because the 3-year-old cussed. What do you think God's doing for us? He's so much bigger than us. We're like a 3-year-old to him. He just laughs at us and goes, I just thought of a really bad joke. He's, ow, I hurt my scar. But I'm going to go to hell on that one. I'm sure.
Good. All right, there's a hard cut, man. That's a hard cut.
We take ourselves so seriously.
Yeah.
About, offending God, and we don't. I mean, but the fact that you're like worried about it tells me something.
90 minutes, brother. Nice job, man. That was a good time.
I told you, I can go on.
I haven't been doing interviews for a while, and I appreciate we sustained 3 viewers on 12 platforms, 12 accounts on 6 or 7 platforms. We sustained like 3 viewers on all those platforms and all those accounts, almost for the whole time. So
well, Turner don't count.
Fuck, I think we're burning the internet down right now, man.
No.
Anyways, I love you, brother. Thanks for taking the time. We'll do a follow-up so we can get into the book a little bit more, and maybe we'll bring Turner on one night. Maybe we should get a few of our... What I'd like to do is get one of our little men's groups to commit to making it public and just doing our guys thing publicly. That'd be fun.
That would be.
And I will control the mute mic so I can turn Turner off anytime I want.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Yeah, maybe we get Turner and Snell and Butler and me and you. That'd be a good crew. All right, let's organize that. That'd be a good time.
That would be. I appreciate everybody listening, and thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, you're welcome, my brother. I appreciate the time. That's 90 minutes. It flew by pretty quick. For some people, it seemed more like a couple years, but that's okay. I've been in the basement. I haven't been doing a lot. So thank you I want to acknowledge you for the inspiration of just get me to commit to doing something, because, there's something for everyone in a conversation, and people come in and out of the conversation. Some people maybe watch the whole thing. Thank you. I'm glad you found it interesting enough, but thank you to you, Dan. I mean, out of nowhere, you're like, I'm praying for you. I'm like, oh, damn, can you take a call? Because I need to talk to a guy right now. And that's when I was going through the thing. Yep. And that still hasn't sorted itself all out. But whatever's meant to be is meant to be. And I've just got better at going, okay, I did not plan on coming down here. I came down here with 3 weeks' notice, sold very little what I had in Canada, and left seemingly for good. You know what I mean? And I didn't. That's not my plan. Like, I executed it, but it just opened up, and I don't know what I'm doing here. And, every day I get a little more glimpses of what I'm doing here, because I make differences, just by saying hello to some people that, whatever, just being a guy. But, and then, the thing I called you about, that was deep and emotional. And yeah, at some level, I'm making a wild difference for really important people on this planet. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
You know, I didn't leave with this whole idea. So yeah, I've gotten. Anyways, I'm taking a long way to acknowledge you because, like, conversations are important, and you know, I don't know why. You know, I remember doing a show with Dan O'Shea. He's the business end of My Son the Hurricane, which is a pretty popular band from where I come from, and they're getting pretty big now. And I did an interview with him, and I'm like, well, that was great. And G, a friend of mine there, who's a band leader from another band, he was running the camera, and he's like, Dan was like his hero, right? I'm like, well, that was great. You know, nobody's watching or whatever. And I said to G, I go, whose name is Jihad. Why am I doing this again? He goes, well, dude, I can just tell you by being here, it was a good day for me. I'm like, you never know. Like, I do interviews with guys, and I think I'm doing it for me or for the audience or whatever, and no, my subject's getting something out of it, or I'm getting something, or somebody calls, sees a little clip, and they're like, I don't know who he was. I think he was from Georgia or something. He said this thing. Dude, that was 10 years ago. I haven't forgotten it. I'm like, you don't often get acknowledged for, the difference you make just by having a conversation like this and putting it out there. And, I do love doing it. It's, I think I'm facing the fact that, I might be commitment phobic. Like, when I took this job, like, they hired me on the spot, right? And I was there Thursday, and it started Monday. I had to be there at 7:45 for 5 days a week. I'm a realtor. I've been a realtor for well over 30 years. Like, I haven't had a job for a long time, right? As I'm saying, I'm like, I'm trying to convey how nervous I am because my interviewer doesn't speak English at all, and I was getting through the translating that they wanted me right now, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And then I was shook. And so, anyways, thank you for getting me off my ass and out of the basement. I did a show not long ago. It was all about real estate, but I really I did it as a Jim Fannin show style. Like, I played music, and I did it like I would, do my Jim Fannin show. And usually I would have a couple drinks. I did have a glass of wine, but it was almost done. I did an hour, and it was kind of like a cross between real estate and the old Jim Fannin show, like funny and loose and stupid, and and it was all about real estate. And ever since I've done the show, like, I've been in the basement for 45 days. I haven't broadcast for almost 2 months, probably, in addition to being sick and whatever. And I can't stop going around shaking my head, feeling embarrassed that I let my real estate channel do something like this, or do something, that was really loose and silly, because, I'm here for my own pleasure. When people understand that about me, that's all you need to know. I'm funny. I think, Jim Rome always says, if you think you're funny, you're not. One of the greatest sports broadcasters ever to live, Jim Rome. Love that guy.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, so I turned into a little monologue at the end there, acknowledging you for getting me off my couch. But I appreciate it, and it was a good conversation. It flew by, and I think we should do it again. And if nothing else, we committed to doing a guys group, public guys group. I think we can get those boys to agree to that. But it would be awesome. I'm going to work on Snell for 3 weeks. Dan Snell. Next week, who have I got on Thursday? Oh, Mario Dragos is a realtor on the South Shore in Punta Cana. He is fire. I call him a machine gun of knowledge. Specifically, he's good with the Spanish language. He's Romanian, but grew up in New York City, and has been here for a long time, and just entertaining, bald, tattooed head to toe, and just a fierce personality.
The language,
and
the language makes sense.
I'll break it
because
right now.
It's Romance language. So, going from Romanian to Spanish is not as hard as you'd think.
Yeah, I think Romania, I'm pretty sure. But anyways, he's starting a law firm. He's already started a law firm. He's, and I'll break the news now for anyone that's watching, but Dragos is actually creating a podcast as well. His creator talent is off the charts, and he's, again, just silly and loose and swears, and he's just Mario Dragos, right? And I
love
love
that.
guys like that because like it doesn't matter where you meet me. I'll tone it down for the kids or for a pastor or whatever at church or whatever. But you're always getting me. There's no, and it's just like this, basically. So, anyways, thanks for the opportunity, and something good came out of that. Maybe I'll send a message to the WhatsApp group going, we booked a date for you guys. Maybe we'll turn. Well, I shouldn't do that to Dan because I told Dan I'd have him one-on-one in 3 weeks. So maybe we'll make it 4 weeks at the end of January, the last Thursday of the month. We'll try and get the 4 of us or the 5 of us on here to bullshit each other for an hour and a half. That'll be fun.
Yeah. I love it because I'll be 12 hours ahead. So I won't say exactly when I'm going, but I will be going to the UAE here in within the next 2 months. My wife and I for her school. Yeah, she's working on her doctorate in business administration, and they have classes there for a week in Dubai. So
nice.
Have a good time.
Safe travels, man. Good to see you. I love you. Thank you for the time, and I think I got time to catch the last half hour of Gavin McInnes.
There you go.
Hard cut. We're out of here. Peace,
All
love, and hug your neighbor.
All right.
Peace, bro. All right. So how do I do this? End you here. End all meeting for all. No, don't take me. No, you hang up. You hang up on me. Because then I'll leave my camera up. I can talk to my people one-on-one before I go.
All right.
No,
all right, man.
No, you
Have
hang
fun.
up. You.
All right. I'm hitting the leave button.
Go.
See ya.
No, you hang up, not me.
No, I don't want to.
No, you do it. No,
Let's just
I don't
fall
want to say
asleep
goodbye.
like this.
I don't want to say goodbye.
I've done that before. Woke up in the morning and you hear somebody snoring on the other line. You're like, yep, don't want to date them. They're snoring. Nah. Hey, have a good one, bro.
All right, brother.
I'll see you on chat.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you. Oh, don't. No, you go. All right. Well, that's how you do that. Thank you to Dan Payne. I never have an agenda when I come out here, and I apologize to Savage if you're still with us. Thanks for hanging out, because the Dominican channel doesn't always broadcast stuff like this. But I just left all the accounts on. I've got 3 accounts. TrueTube's even going on YouTube, I think. I got TrueTube, Jim Fannin, and the Dominican channel all going at once on YouTube. And then there's 2 accounts on, maybe 3 accounts at Jim Fannin Live. Is the only place I can do a Jim Fannin show live, because my other 2 accounts, the Jim Fannin show account, which I got back from Elon, and the original at Jim Fannin is back, but it won't let me broadcast live there. So I have a live only account that lets me go live, and that's all there is lives there. So that's at Jim Fannin Live. And at Buying Dominican Live too on Twitter normally. And then D Live and Twitch. I see some Twitch conversations here. Jim Fannin Show. Are you afraid to question the existence of God? Of a God? No. I'm good with it. I love conversations that question the existence of the Almighty. Who is this? I can barely see. My eyes are at a point where the cheaters are better, but my distance glasses aren't good enough. They used to be good. My distance glasses used to be good when I was trying to look here. Paco? Pachuco. Cadaver? Oh my God. Did I just read out like Jim Fannin Show. Is this a stream where people think Trump won in 2020? I try to stay out of the politics on my real estate channels, but democracy is dead in the United States. Let's say that. For 4 years. All right. Peace, love, hug your neighbor. I'm out.